we have a kind culture. They say the coaches are kind, the house parents are kind, but most importantly, all the other students are kind. So I think that respect culture, that kind culture, is something that we value enormously, a sense of family. And the other thing they talk about is how they enjoy the freedom. They're in the house with a golf cart and the course and range is open to them whenever they like. We have floodlights. They can keep going till 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. When it gets a bit darker at 5:30 in the winter, they're using the floodlit putting, bunker chipping, and hitting bays.
Welcome to the Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Adams, and today I'm joined by Andrew Summers, the visionary behind the International Junior Golf Academy, or IJGA, the oldest and most prestigious golf boarding school in North America. If you're serious about your child's golf future, this is where it happens. With their own private golf course, a 99% college placement rate, and a team of world-class coaches who've shaped some of the best junior players in the planet, IJGA is truly in a league of its own. So if you're ready to give your child every opportunity to succeed, visit IJGA.com to learn more. Now, let's get into it. Andrew Summers, welcome to the Golf Parent Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Ryan, for having me.
So I've got to tell you, right off the bat, I'm in Sri Lanka, and as luck would have it, the AC is out right now. So if you see me dabbing myself or you see me perspiring profusely, it's not because I'm nervous. It's not because what you're saying is really getting to me. It's that literally there's no AC and it's a bit of a heat wave here right now.
Well, I mentioned just before we got on air that I planned to do this podcast outside my house, enjoying the full view that I get from my office and in the Florida sun. So I might too have been dabbing myself without AC in the Florida sunshine.
So let's talk about that for a second, because it's one of the things that just fascinates me about IJGA is the fact that it's literally a private golf course for the kids. Like, you're right there, your house, the kids' house, there's multiple properties, and it's like a gated community where it's this beautiful kind of enclosed, protected little ecosystem where the kids can just play golf all day. They're not interacting with anybody else, and then they're just going to school and playing golf. Like, am I understanding that correct? Like, is that really the playground that you've created?
Yes, I joke that if you like golf, this is golf heaven. And if you don't like golf, this is golf hell. But yes, we've got a 175-acre gated community campus. There are 75 houses that have been built. We own 37 of them, so we got half of them. And we own the other 75 undeveloped lots, which gives us control of the campus. And I mentioned it's gated. And yes, we redeveloped the range, bespoke to our needs. So we operate a pod system. We have 3 groups of coaches in 3 pods, and we give them each a practice bunker chipping. We give them each hitting space, and we give them each a putter, a putting area. So we've got 9 zones on our range. So it's a 20-acre extensive range designed for our pod structure. And then we've got our own golf course. I took 4 holes away for the range. So now we're down to just 12 golf holes, effectively a 9-hole golf course. But having gone to university at St Andrews in Scotland, which is famed for its double greens, I've put 2 flags on each of our greens, obviously much smaller than the old course greens. And we've got 2 different tee boxes. I sit in front of the second fairway, the 11th fairway, and I like to tell people that the second hole is the easiest hole in the golf course, a par 5 down breeze, downhill. And you can make an eagle if you've got the 540-yard carry. But hole number 11 is the most difficult hole in the course, with the same fairway, the same green, because the fairway pinches at the driving level between my house, which gets bombed occasionally, and the lagoon that's just across the fairway from me. So it's a fairly narrow landing area. So you get many doubles and triples on hole number 11, and hopefully birdies and eagles on hole number 2. So we've done very well, I believe, to give a very different challenge on hole 1 and 10, 2, 11, 4, 13, as we've gone around the course. And we host tournaments throughout the year. We have about 20 tournament weekends on this golf course. We have about 6 WAGR events. We operate 3, and another professional golf operation, NXXT, operate another 3. and it holds up very well to the challenge. We've had some super golfers come through our junior golf academy. Most recently, someone called Jack Turner, who's at University of Florida and is the #1 junior in the nation. So he's hoping to keep it that way and get his card straight to the tour. And he claims that this is his most fun golf course anywhere in America. And Gerardo Gomez, who's at Arkansas, leading guy at Arkansas, with John Daly, another one of our students at Arkansas. Gerardo won the Mexican Amateur, and again, he comes back here and he says, I just love this course. You got the best greens in America. So it does hold up well, and we've groomed the people like John Daly, Jack Turner, Brady Duval, son of David Duval, Gerardo Gomez, many wonderful golfers using our golf track, which is fair, but has sufficient challenge to keep them on their toes. And so, yes, each have their own golf cart. We've got 175 golf carts. Every kid is given their own golf cart. It goes at 21 miles an hour if you're a top golfer, down to 14 miles an hour if you're a developing golfer. And if you take on captain responsibilities, student roles, it goes at 18 miles an hour. And they love flying around the golf course, the range, no tee times needed. And they have the freedom to leave their house on the golf course and enjoy the facilities. There's nothing like it.
Golf heaven, literally. And I mean, as someone that grew up on public golf courses where the greens are often just pot marked like the dark side of the moon, it's limited to just how many students? Is it 100 kids, 200 kids that get to just use the course?
Yes, no. My background was investment management. I spent 25 years in finance, and I've brought many lessons that I learned in investment management across to this junior golf academy, because when you're entrusted with someone's money, there's a lot of obligation, sincerity behind that. And we left Morgan Stanley and set up our own company with the determination to provide the top quality product to our clients, which meant capping at a level. And at one point, we had an 8-year waiting list for people to give us money because we capped it in order to provide the highest quality product. Morgan Stanley was probably more interested in profits than necessarily capping the product, which is the reason why we left. And I bring the same discipline to this junior golf academy. As I mentioned, we've got 75 undeveloped lots. I could build housing for another 200 people if I wanted. But we want to cap at 100 people because we think at 100 we can provide the best experience. We want 100 to pay for the facilities, to pay for the top golf team. But if you get more than 100, you're beginning to dilute the relationships. The range is getting busier. The golf course is getting perhaps overused and busier. And so we optimize at about 100. Often that's 95 in the fall semester and another 10 joining us in January in the spring semester. So it averages out at that. But we do have capacity. And in Thanksgiving, we have the national teams of Denmark, Ireland, and Switzerland have been coming to us for 10 years. So it is nice seeing Rasmus Holgaard playing in the Ryder Cup recently, because Rasmus and Nikolai were here twice in 2017 and 18 with the Danish team. And to my embarrassment, I looked back at the housing and I'd squashed 4 of these Danish superstars into one small room, sharing that small bathroom. But that's what it's like as a teenager.
You're forced adversity and a little bit of grit into them right now, a little bit of a challenge.
Accommodation. Most of our students are 2 to a bedroom, all en suite with their own bathroom. But yes, so we enjoy those college students. That's about 40 college students that will be down here at Thanksgiving. And I know you're Canadian, Ryan, but we like having Team Ontario come down, the top 16 juniors from Ontario come for the first week in December and the first week in February, and they then combine and play tournaments with our students. We've had the top 16 Norwegians, Quebecois group come down. We've had top 30 British students come, and they come in October and April. So we have capacity to have others, and we enjoy welcoming the juniors from Ontario, the juniors from Britain, the juniors from Norway, and these college students at different times. But we prefer to have juniors visiting us who can integrate and play in our tournaments and compete with our students.
It's necessary too. Because
St. Andrews University, and we had St. Andrews University team with us for 4 days last May 2024. And I'm very satisfied to say that our students beat them 16.5 to 15.5 in a match. So we topped St. Andrews University.
That's fantastic. I was gonna say, like you're also located in Florida too. So for so many Denmark Canadians, even anybody in the northern portions of the U.S., you can't golf year round. So the idea that you can come down in December, November, January, February, and actually keep golfing, I mean, what an advantage that is. It's unparalleled.
Well, there's many boasts I can make about what we've done with our facilities, with our staff, and all the rest of it. But the real winner is what you're alluding to, is the Florida sunshine. And yes, that's all year round. Even it can be 75, 80 Fahrenheit on Christmas Day, New Year's Day. We do get some chilly days, chilly starts to the day, but normally by 11, 12 o'clock, it's up to 45 or 50, even in the colder days of the winter. So really can't complain. And that's really why so many of the golf academies and why junior golf tournaments are so well developed here in Florida, because it's the weather.
Now you've mentioned a few times that you went. Was it a boarding academy that you were at the Royal St. Andrews course? Like, is that it was school as well as you boarded there?
Well, that was university, the University of St. Andrews, which I'm very proud to say. Not when I was there. We called ourselves Oxford and Cambridge Rejects, the Oxbridge Rejects. But St. Andrews is now rated #1 university in Britain by some measures. But so I enjoy it. It's one of the oldest universities, I think from about 1418 or something like that. And of course, the old course at St. Andrews is the famed home of golf. And so when I went up as a tennis player, I played tennis and table tennis for the university, as well as shot and played bridge, funnily enough. I had to learn golf, and I set myself a goal of breaking 80 during my 4 years at St. Andrews. And I just made it before I graduated.
Did you guys have free access to the course, or or was it, because it's a public course, correct? I mean, but did you get preferential access?
There were 4 courses when I was there back in 1973 to 1977, and now there's 6 courses. Free is, well, no, it cost me $5 a year. I know. And the very first day I went to play golf when I was a freshman, I turned up at the new course. I always liked the new course because it was the hardest course, which meant no one else liked to play it. So I had the freedom to practice on the course and take my time on the course because it was pretty much empty, a James Braid design. But the first day I went to play with my friend Pete, there were 2 Americans looking a little lost because they didn't have a caddy. So they asked us, "Hey boys, would you like to caddy for us?" And I think I got $5 for the first caddying round, as did Pete. And that paid my subscription for the year.
Well, so unheard of in this day and age that that opportunity would be there for such a reasonable cost. And that's for if you're a local, obviously.
Of course, mostly. I mean, maybe 3 or 4 times a week I'd go out. I studied mathematics, and my lectures were over by 11 o'clock in the morning every day. I had nothing in the afternoons. And I was quite good at maths. So I didn't have too much other work to do. So I got a lot of golf, tennis, squash, other time. But I'd also play the old course more in sort of April, May, and I'd go out at 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night after dinner and after the tourists were off the course and when the wind was down. And, you'd finish by 10 o'clock at night as it's getting dark. And then I'd also, in those days, you could go out whenever you liked. I'd go out on a Saturday morning at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning when no one was out there and just go and play the old course, which was such a treat. They introduced, subsequent to my leaving St. Andrews, that, you couldn't play before 7 o'clock and it was far more controlled. But in my day, you could play 7 o'clock at night, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. The very last day I was at St. Andrews, I did 36 holes of golf before 9 o'clock. I did 18 holes on the old course and 18 holes on the Eden course, and finished, I think, with 3 birdies in the last 5 holes. And so I said, "Yep, I've achieved my goal."
That's it. I retire. I'm good.
Reached the 70s as a student. Great fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. So obviously growing up in the UK, the idea of going to a boarding school is very common. It's almost the norm. But in North America, being either Canadian or from the US, it's not as common to send your kids out to boarding schools. Help me understand, as a golf parent myself, to be like, why would you send your kid to a boarding school? What's the advantages to that, and what's kind of the history around it, and what does that look like then for at IJGA?
Well, actually, going back, I was actually brought up in South Africa. And so
Mm.
I went to boarding school in South Africa because our little town of Alice, which was the center of black education in South Africa, there was no secondary school. So by age of 11, everyone had to go to boarding school. There was no choice. I was thrilled to go to boarding school because I had 4 sisters, so it was the great escape. And I developed my love of sport at this South African boarding school. As you will know, the South Africans are pretty crazy about their sport. But yes, in the Anglo countries, South Africa, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and of course Britain, boarding schools are quite normal. And I argue that the British Empire was built through the boarding schools, which developed character in the upper class children who, in their stately homes, were surrounded by servants who would spoil them. Well, they were sent to Rugby, to Wellington, to Eton, to Harrow, where they had cold showers in the morning. They played rugby in the mud, and they were caned by their prefects and their teachers. But they developed a backbone that they wouldn't have got if they'd remained at home surrounded by servants. And there's an element to that story in my coming to America, because my 3 stepchildren would go to their father at weekends and have a Filipino nanny who spoiled them rotten. And they really weren't developing much character during their weekends, while with a wonderful father, but he had a busy schedule himself, so they were often with them. So I think one element of boarding schools is the development of independence and the development of character that comes with it. I did a podcast with the University of Virginia coach who's been at the University of Virginia about 20 years, and also the University of Sacred Heart coach. And when I was asked a similar question to what you've asked me by the audience in Thailand, it was for the Mazda Thailand Junior Golf Tournament, I said, something that I enjoy seeing our children develop is independence. They learn how to look after their own laundry. Some of them learn how to cook. And they all have to learn how to time manage. So before they get to college, they're developing some of those skills that are necessary when they get to college. And it was interesting how quickly the University of Virginia and the University of Sacred Heart coaches jumped in on that comment. And they said, yes, we have such a job with so many people who come from home straight to college. And I think they were more focused in on the time management issue, in just teaching people to time manage. Yesterday, I was dealing with a student issue, and he wants to meet me at 11 o'clock. He says, I really can't put my cashmere clothes through the washing machine. Can I have a laundry service? And so I'm having to figure out how to handle that. And then he says, really, I'm no good at cooking. And so I've got our chef. We've got 5 chefs here looking catering. So I've got my chef teaching him some cooking skills in the kitchen. And so just seeing the kids develop that independence, how to look after their laundry, how to look after, do some cooking, but most importantly, learn time management. We have a very busy schedule. It's 4 hours of in school. It's 4 hours of golf, probably another couple of hours of homework, an hour of fitness, barely much time for socializing during the week. So they've got to be very careful with their time management. And in the event that they've got a little bit more homework than they can fit into our homework hours, they might have to say to their coach, look, can I opt out of the elective at 4:15 and instead just go to the education center and do my homework rather than staying up past midnight, and losing sleep. So I think just that independence, time management, preparation for college. Many, obviously, boarding schools describe themselves as preparatory colleges, and that they're preparing for university or they're preparing for life away from the comforts of the family home.
I'm just putting 2 and 2 together right now, and this is embarrassing to admit, but that's what a prep school is. It's a preparatory school, prepping you for university. I never, I get it's not normally a term that we use in North America, but yeah, that's what a prep school is. And just to go back, Andrew, I can verify or validate what you're saying, because I've been fortunate enough now to talk to almost 10, close to 10 different Division I coaches. And to a T, I'd say almost all of them have said that the number one struggle that they see is when the freshmen come into school and they're going from basically mom and dad's kind of curated taking care of them to all of a sudden thrust to have to take care of their laundry, time manage, figure out how to manage going to school, homework while doing practice. And they say that most of the juniors or freshmen really struggle to kind of figure that out. And so the idea that that can already be figured out in high school and they can hit the ground running when they get to college or university, that's a huge advantage.
And I guess there's another layer to it as well, in that they have to learn to live with other people, perhaps other people with different habits, different cultures, different values, different morals. And there's quite an adjustment. We have kids from 25 different countries with us here, so we're very internationally diverse in our 100 students. We've actually only got 6 US students and we've got 4 Canadians. So we've got 10 North Americans out of our 100, but we've got 20 Chinese, we've got 25 Mexicans, 15 Japanese, 5 Thai, 5 Korean, and then a smattering of Europeans, Middle Eastern, African. And so it's quite a mix.
I can say that anytime that you go traveling, or if you can take your kids traveling, they're fundamentally changed just by the exposure of seeing different cultures and trying different foods and seeing how other people throughout the world live outside of the way their own little bubble is. So the idea that you can bring the outside world to them, and they could be having housemates from all over the world and be exposed to almost that travel, but while still staying in the U.S. I mean, that's huge because I mean, like, everybody's eyes open when you have friends from different cultures and ethnicities and belief structures, your belief structures and all of you expand as well. It's another element of growth outside of just the golf and the education that you can get.
And the first 4 weeks of a semester, I mean, I think we had 55 returning students, 40 new students. So there's quite a number of people who are experiencing freedom from their homes for the first time. And it can be pretty crazy the first 3 or 4 weeks because they're overdosing on this freedom that they get away from parents and all the rest of it. And then things settle. And we've just now come out of that first 4 weeks and things are settling again. But it can be a bit crazy to begin with. But yes, so they have to experience that freedom, make mistakes along the way. And another reason why we like to cap at 100 is rather than being a top-down institutional organization which is built on rules and discipline and authority, we prefer to be a nurturing, bottom-up, loving community where we all know each other very well. We've got strong relationships, and out of those relationships, we believe we've got a nice respect culture. And so with 100 students and a respect culture and a nurturing environment, we're in the business of trying to teach people how to live together, how to obey rules because they want to be a good person, not because they're scared of the consequences. So another reason for us capping at about 100 to have a nice control over that peer group, the culture.
You'd mentioned a boy, it was 12 years old. What's the age group of the students? Like, what's the range?
We normally have about 4 or 5 middle schoolers, 7th grade, 8th grade. And then, so that means predominantly we're high school. And we've got about 5 postgraduates. So let's say 5 middle schoolers, 5 postgraduates, and then we'll have maybe about 25 seniors, 20 11th grade, 15th, 10th grade, 15 9th grade, something like that. So mostly high school. It's not cheap. It's not cheap, obviously. Coming here, so 4 years is quite a stretch for parents,
Sure.
Between us and the private school we partner with. And also many parents judge that 11, 12 is just a little young to send them. I
Sure.
went to boarding school at 11 and look at me, I turned out great, Brian. It did me no harm. Quoting from someone in the House of Lords who was 70 and he said, well, I grew up with being caned by prefects and look at me. How great.
Turned out great. Yeah, not that you're impartial at all.
Yeah, no, Thomas. But yeah, so I didn't find 11, 12 particularly, a problem to adjust. But many parents, and I do understand it, think 13, 14 would be a more appropriate age. And then there's the financial angle, as I mentioned.
Yeah. What's the schools or the housing situation like? You mentioned that everybody's boarding together. What's a typical house? How many kids are in the house? Is there a leader of the house? How does that work?
Yeah. So we try to create a home away from home. So we're not doing the old-fashioned school dormitory concept. And I mentioned we have 37 townhomes that we own. We've got 5 townhomes for girls, and typically they'll have 3 or 4 bedrooms in the house, all en suite with their own bathroom. Actually, all the girls' houses, I give the girls the best houses on the lake. That's what I learned from my 4 sisters, that you got to look after the ladies first. So the girls get the houses on the lake. They're all 4-bedroom houses, all en suite. And typically we'll have 6 or 7 girls in the houses. So typically they're sharing, a nice sized bedroom with their own bathroom. And similarly for the boys, we've got, we've got 10 houses for the boys. And typically, again, there'll be 2 to a room with an ensuite bathroom with about 5, 6, 7 boys in a house. We, in terms of house leaders, we don't have adults in the house with the students. And therefore, we ask the 11th and 12th graders to become captains. We call them captains, like an old-fashioned school prefect, but without the negative connotation of that. And these captains are the role models, the people of character, who ensure that the chores get done every night. The golf carts get plugged in, the trash is taken out, the public spaces, kitchen, dining room, living room, are tidy. The bedrooms are kept tidy. We do an award for the tidiest bedrooms, the tidiest houses, that sort of thing. Make sure that the dishes are in the dishwasher. I came up with the genius idea, which no one else had come up with. Sorry to boast. But people were cooking, at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But the dishwasher was running. So I said, well, why don't we run the dishwasher at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, empty it, and then we've got an empty dishwasher when they come to cook at 9:30 at night. And that genius idea is now working very well. So our dishwasher does get loaded up after the evening cookout rather than the dishes being in the sink when we arrive in the morning.
So do the kids have flexibility with what they're cooking or what they're having for dinner? Or you had mentioned that there's a cafeteria or a chef? Hey, golf parents, quick pause here. If you're enjoying this conversation and getting value from it, do me a quick favor. Hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more parents who are on the same journey as you, raising the next generation of great golfers. All right, that's it. And now, back to the show.
75 kids to target on Friday night, which I always thought, is that my choice of a Friday night activity? But the kids love it. And I drive them along with, 5 other house parents. We take 6 vans. And we do lock up all the cashier points. The managers don't really like us. From 8 o'clock to 8:20, we own the target cashier points. But so we go 75 kids and they just wander around with their friends. We do a little karaoke on the way there, on the way back. There's a Starbucks there, but they can buy a range of things, from their clothing or personal hygiene things to food. Get their Starbucks, and then we do Chick-fil-A, Panda Express runs on the way back. And it's a nice way to end a busy week with a little bit of a relax. So they get the opportunity to get food and snacks then. And we take the Asians to the Asian market, both the Korean market and the Chinese market, on Saturday afternoons. Take about 20 of them down. And then on Sunday nights, we go to Publix, which is the local supermarket here. So there are plenty of opportunity, to buy food. And the one thing that we absolutely say is a no-no, cultural no-no: don't steal anyone else's food. If they bought their rice, respect, it's their rice. If they bought Oreos, it's their Oreos, etc., etc. And obviously, it's quite tempting. Oh gosh, I don't have any rice. I'll borrow from so-and-so.
I could say, as someone that's lived with roommates, that is the number one: cleanliness of the bathroom and stealing food. That's you got to address that. You mentioned that there's a lake in that the girls get kind of the lakefront properties. Can you swim the lake, or the kids jump in the lake? Like, is it fishable, swimmable?
Once had a wonderful holiday in Lake Garda by Verona in Italy, and Lake Garda is just spectacular. There's water skiing, there's just every kind of water activity you could imagine, on the lake. But here in Florida, the lakes see none of that action. Full of alligators.
Ah.
There's nothing goes on in the lakes. But our kids do. We have a marina, a 50 boat marina on our property. And we have our own boat that's got a nice 4.5 horsepower engine, goes pretty speedy. And we take kids on boat rides. But even more importantly, the kids love to fish on the lake. So you have 4 or 5 diehard fishermen. And in the spawning season, I mean, they just go out, they drop drop their rod and the fish pop out. And so we've had some wonderful catches on the marina. But it's lovely for the view. The sun rises over the lake, so it's really a morning view, not an evening view. So it's a gorgeous view. We do our fireworks on the various occasions, 4th of July, New Year's, things like that. Mexican Independence Day, we did it recently over the lake. And we take the kids for boat rides to a lovely, cutesy little town, Mount Dora, going through 2 of the prettiest canals, I would say, not just in Florida, but in America. Really amazing, the Dead River and the Dora Canal. And I normally take 7 in a van, 7 in a boat, and then we switch around at the other end. So you go by boat or come back by boat, just to give 14, 15 people the access. And they adore it. It's just a beautiful little experience for them. So we're always looking to enhance, golf is such a big part of their lives. Just giving them a bit of variety is quite fun.
I get it. And just to share a personal story, being in Sri Lanka right now, that it's every lake you see, you're like, yeah, no, there's crocodiles, like legit crocodiles. In fact, they found a 30-foot crocodile in Sri Lanka, 30 feet. And going up in Canada, you're like, every lake you see, for the most part, I mean, as long as it's outside the city centers, like, they're pristine, beautiful. I mean, they're cold, but they're refreshing. But different in Florida.
To remove alligators if they get over 10 feet long. And one morning we'd called for it, and I saw the guy removing it, and he had a trailer at the back of his van. And when I saw what was in the trailer, there were about 5 alligators that he had trapped. And they protected species here, so I presume that they're relocating them, making alligator
wallets or boots or briefcase out of it.
Or anything like that. So yes, we've got 3 lagoons on our golf course, and typically 1 or 2 alligators in each lagoon. They're quite territorial. They don't really like to share. So typically 1 alligator, but then you see 2. And we've got a canal that comes out of the lake all the way along along the property. And I think that's where the alligators are breeding, because we often find little baby alligators, taking a little walk out of the canal.
It's both very, very cute and very, very terrifying. Yeah, Andrew, you had mentioned that at one of the things that you try to do is create a lot of other opportunities for growth, like going out in the lake, or if boats, going on field trips. What are the sports? Talk about the fitness side of the boarding school. So, is there other, like, basketball courts, pickleball, tennis? What's the weight room kind of like? Like, what else can the kids do?
Yeah. Well, in terms of fitness, that's so important from an injury prevention point of view. And we just this year upped the fitness from 3 one-hour sessions a week. We now do 5 45-minute sessions a day. Well, 5 days a week, we do 45-minute session. And they also do 2 morning sessions as well. So there are days where they're doing 2 45-minute sessions of mobility, and strength, conditioning, whatever it might be, all aimed towards the golfer. And something I've never done myself, which holds my game back.
Right.
But yes, so we take that whole fitness very seriously. We have open gym on Saturday and Sunday, which is supervised from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock if they want to do a 7-day a week. There are some that go in for gym at 6 in the morning before school, and they do, half an hour of a workout. So we have 2 gyms. We have an outdoor gym, which works a good 10 months of the year. It gets pretty hot and maybe a little cold for, the extreme ends of the weather pattern. And then we have our indoor gym, which is air conditioned and heated and all the rest of it. So they have the access to do that. We control what they do in the gym. If they do an open gym without the supervision of our 2 fitness instructors are truly excellent. I mean, I just couldn't imagine two better fitness instructors. We're so fortunate to have Sebastian and Trevor with us. Sebastian is an alumni. He was with IJGA 20 years ago, funnily enough. But they are given their training routine to do. If they want to bulk up, I think Tiger Woods bulked up at one point, Rory McIlroy bulked up. And I sometimes wonder if they bulked up excessively. Some people attribute some of Tiger's problems to lifting 300 pounds. His knee problems could have been exacerbated by the weightlifting. And at one point, I thought Rory had taken it a bit far. He's looking magnificent at the moment and obviously playing terrifically well. But so I think we have to balance, things like the weightlifting, which many people want to do from a, feel-good point of view. So, they get plenty of fitness. We've got a basketball court that's floodlit that they enjoy playing on. We've got 2 tennis courts, which are floodlit. We've got a pickleball court. We've got beach volleyball. And we've got a sort of 5-a-side soccer pitch that they can enjoy playing. It was designed as a croquet lawn for my benefit, but that didn't go well with the teenage, and they took it over for soccer. So I spent $100,000 on that croquet, and it's now ruined by the soccer net. But they enjoy it; they love it.
That's fantastic. Okay, so
they do have other things to do other than just golf, just as as a distraction.
Yeah.
Fun activities.
Okay, so for the golf parents right now that are listening, and I mean, honestly, it sounds incredible. It sounds wonderful, but there's other boarding schools too. I mean, as a parent, what do I ask? How do I know which is a good boarding school? How many other boarding schools are there in the U.S.? How do you guys compare to the schools? And what are the kind of maybe key handful of questions that I as a parent should be asking to make sure that I find the right fit for my kid?
Well, we came from London for my stepson to come to Stan Smith's tennis academy. And he had tried it out a couple of times. But even then, with some prior experience, I found myself, I wish I'd asked these 100 questions before I left my position in finance in London and moved the family over to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And I've got actually a list of 200 questions that if you'd ever like to see them, Ryan, that I think parents could ask, under like 15 different headings and 7 or 8 questions under each heading, some very technical. Funnily enough, some people in the know say the very first question a parent should ask is, what is your corporate structure? Which isn't a natural question that pops off the page. And, you've got for-profit schools, you've got not-for-profit schools. But what I think is very important is we've structured ourselves as a partnership. And the reason why a partnership, I believe, is so important, even though we've got wonderful golf facilities, at the end of the day, the service is delivered by people. So you want to have highly motivated people who will be loyal and be with us for 10, 20, 30 years, to have an institutional knowledge. And particularly with golf coaches, which is such a trust relationship between the student and their coach. One of the first questions people ask when we're re-enrolling them for the next year is, will my coach still be there? Well, if you're a partnership and the coaches own the company, the answer is yes, because why would they go anywhere else? There's no other golf academy boarding school structured as a partnership where you can somewhat guarantee the loyalty of your staff. So most of our coaches have been with us 8, 9, 10 years or longer, which is very important. And then again, they motivate to go the extra mile. Any extra revenue they earn, is for them. There's no outside shareholders draining of whatever. And then they're also motivated to be somewhat efficient with expenses and efficient with the number of staff because of the partnership structure. But so I think that corporate structure is underestimated as an important motivator of loyalty and also the passion of the senior people. So that's one question that I think is often overlooked. Another question would be, how many students? If you don't have your own facilities, there's not another golf course out there that wants more than 20 or 25 juniors running over their range, running over their golf course. We started at across the road in the Mission Inn golf compound with 2 18-hole courses, a lovely hotel. I love everything about the Mission Inn. And I was a lifetime member because I'd paid for the range to be developed there for the students, a second range. But then I'd go out in November at 4 o'clock to get 9 holes of golf in my golf cart. And after 3 holes, I come up against a wave of 7 4-balls, walking students. They were my students, but I'd go into a rage because I had a plan. My plan was aborted. So again, if you're renting someone else's facilities, you're capped at 20 or 25. And that means that you're very limited in perhaps being able to attract the best coaches because the revenues from 20 or 25 is limited. You perhaps can't attract the best fitness coach, the best mental performance coach. You might not be able to afford the best college placement. And then very importantly, you're limiting the number of friendships. You might have one house for girls. And if 2 girls don't get on well together, you've got 9 months, 2 years of drama. How do you manage that drama? You might only have 2 houses for boys. And again, I know of a golf academy in Texas that had 1 house for boys, and 1 was North American and 4 were Latino. Well, he was immediately left out of any social activity. And then one of the Mexican boys was a bit awkward and also a bit left out. Here with 5 houses, we can always find the right, or 10 houses for boys, we can find the right mix, and with 5 houses for girls. So number of students is very important in managing the harmony and perhaps avoiding some of the drama and isolation that could occur in a smaller academy, but that smaller academy is premised or people renting someone else's golf facilities and having a cap layered onto them. So again, having your own facilities opens up to that 100. That 100 brings many advantages. Again, with 100 students, we have central catering. We cook for about 200 people at lunchtime, and we cook for 150 people at dinner because of staff. And in the case of lunch, we invite the residents to free breakfast, free lunch, and free golf to thank them for their patience with all the teenagers overrunning their community. And as a consequence, we have perfect harmony within the community. So again, with that critical mass of students, we have a central catering. We've got enough critical mass that it justifies having 3 different servings for lunch and 3 different servings for dinner. So that critical mass is another factor that should weigh into it. And then just the people to play golf with. Philip Jakobuch, very serious golfer. He won the European Amateur and actually played at Portrush in the British Open this year. Philip wouldn't play with fun people at the weekends. He only wanted to play with serious golfers. Ting Wei was a serious golfer. Jeremy Chen, a serious golfer. Liao Liang, whose father, Wenchong Liang's probably the most famous golfer from China, won the Asia Order of Merit. But they're all serious golfers who want to play with serious people at the weekend. So they find their own groups. If you've got a smaller grouping, you might not easily find that group that you want to play your golf with at the weekends. Little John Daly would play 54 holes of golf at a weekend. Just loved his golf. And again, anyone that wanted to play with him, come on, I'll take you on. And I heard so many students, he was champion putter, short game player, just the best. And I heard so many students talk about how much they learned in playing with John Daly, for example, and how he inspired them, getting out of trouble and rescuing himself and things like that. So again, that's an important thing. I think a critical mass has a spill-on effect to how you can do the catering, has a spill-on effect to the harmony in housing, obviously has a spill-on effect to the economies of scale. We've got one girl who's on the LPGA now. She was a student for 3 years, but still in our community for the first year as an Epson player and 3 years LPGA. She at one point went to a small golf academy with 5 or 6 students, and the fitness instructor got her to do jumps. And after the second jump, she collapsed. The jump was too high, and she hurt her lower back. And 9 years later, she's still suffering to some extent from that lower back injury. It curtails her practice, and she's the most wonderful, gifted golfer, hardworking, so proud of her. She got, I think, 11 birdies in Portland a couple of years ago, which is a record for anyone on the LPGA tour. But she has a back problem from an inadequate fitness instructor. So that's an inadequate fitness instructor in a small academy with 5 or 6. What if the golf coaches were inadequate? It's not so obvious. What if the mental performance coach was not very good? It's not so obvious. But with our critical mass, we've got a team of 13 excellent coaches, the best team I've ever had, 2 great fitness coaches, which I talked about earlier, 2 great people involved in mental performance. We also bring in 2 consultants with our critical mass who are expensive, and so we bring them in sparingly. But Bill Nelson, I can't speak highly enough about Bill Nelson as a mental performance coach. I remember when Alison Corpus won the US Open at Pebble Beach a couple of years ago, very few pros, which disappoints me, ever talk about their coaches, openly. They might reference my coach without their name. Alison Corpus couldn't stop talking about Bill Nelson. And I'm thinking to myself, that's funny that got the same name as our guy. And then when I saw our guy, a few months later, I said, do you know Alison Corpus? He said, yeah. She was at University of South California. I've been working with them for 10 years, and she's an amazing lady, and I think I was able to help her, blah, blah, blah. He's so understated as Bill Nelson, but has so many pros that he works with. He makes such a difference in so many college golfers' lives as well. And we get him to come up twice a month, and he works with our coaches as well as with our students, and does some one-on-one. And then we have Jonathan Yarwood, who's an excellent golf coach, I think one of the best instructors. He was the youngest ever master PGA professional in the UK, and but too expensive for us full-time. So we bring him in for a week, a month in September or October, and he sits in our studio, and we bring our students every 20 minutes. We run another student through the studio with his TrackMan and his Swing Catalyst, and he gives a second opinion like an MRI consultant. So the coach is there with the kid, and Jonathan's just there to give a second opinion. Then they'll go away and work on it for 3 or 4 weeks, and then he'll come back a month later and just see where things are at. But again, with our critical mass, we're able to bring in this expertise, on a limited basis. So I think things, are working really well on all those fronts with the way we've got things structured and modeled. The partnership, the exclusive facilities, which really are world-class facilities, the right critical mass, not too big, not too small, and then we can, build the teams.
And then I was gonna say, Andrew, I can feel my wife right now, just like in my mind saying, because I'm like, okay, this is golf heaven, like sign me up. This is like perfect. But I can hear her saying, what about the education? What about, what kind of education are they getting?
What's education? Exactly. That's a very important component. And, it's more important for some than for others. We partner with the Montford Academy, which is one of the top 20 most notable private schools in America out of 40,000 private schools. And their notoriety comes from being number 1 in basketball, number 1 in tennis, number 1 in baseball, number 1 in soccer, and of course, number 1 in golf in America. So they're very notable for all their sports accomplishments. As you know, in America, there's no national curriculum. So every school has its own curriculum, making it a bit more difficult to measure the academic qualities of different schools. But we believe that they're very good academically, and certainly our students have gone on to excellent colleges. So for us to be able to partner with Montford is truly a privilege. And I mentioned their sports prowess, and they have the same problem as us. They want to bleed their asset. So we want to use our golf course and range morning and afternoon. They want to use their basketball courts morning and afternoon, their soccer pitches, the tennis courts morning and afternoon. So they have the most outstanding afternoon school program, I'm sure anywhere in the world, equal to their morning school program. So we have half our students do morning golf, afternoon school, and half do morning school, afternoon golf. So Montford's just a wonderful, strong academic partner for us, but with the ability to fit our economic needs with the morning and afternoon golf school program. But Montford is quite rigorous, and you're only allowed 15 days of absence for golf tournaments. And we have quite a number of students that represent their countries internationally. So Hung Lei Khan, who played for Junior President's Cup last year, and with Vietnam won the Mura Cup, first time Vietnam had won it since 1963, he's required to play quite a lot of Asia-Pacific events. So he has to travel out to Asia-Pacific for quite a number of events. And then we've got Sophia Sherry Fesikali. She played Junior Solheim Cup. She also plays Wyndham Cup and represents dual nationality, Morocco. And so she's often called to play in Pan Arab or African Amateur Games. So where you've got some very high-flying junior amateurs who have to travel, we've got a partner school called IB Global School, which allows much more flexibility. Although the students are in seat on campus, the teachers come in virtually online. So we have a teacher assistant, they're in seat, they get an F1 visa, but the teacher is online, which means that when they do travel to Morocco or Vietnam, they can still participate in the class by dialing into the class, and the classes all take. So we have Ivy Global for some people who need more than the 15 days of absence from 1/3, and they can get maybe 20, 25, 30 days of absence. So we've got two very good school options, but students begin to sort of filter. I'm likely to go to college more for academics, but I want a wonderful college golf program experience. Or they filter and say, I'm going to college to have an excellent program and keep my options open for professional golf. And maybe I won't do quite so much. I won't do challenging academic work. Jack Turner, who's at University of Florida, I mentioned, he's #1 junior in America. His GPA has suffered. It used to be a lot higher, like 4.4 when he's at 1/3, and it's less because how many hours of golf? He's having to do probably 8 hours of golf a day, which does squeeze the opportunity for academics. And so this, when you're planning for college, you have to begin to figure out as you approach your junior, senior years and beginning to interest the coaches in you, if you're going principally for golf and academics less important, or if you're going principally for academics and golf less important. And it also plays into how you manage your subjects at 1/3 or Ivy Global. If you're going to overload with APs, which are very intensive, or you're going to stick to honors classes or regular classes. So there's quite a lot involved in that. And actually,
But there's options.
in the podcast, I'll be at the airport picking up an alumni who's now coming to work with us for 3 years. She was our top academic student, Hannah Chan. She then went to University of British Columbia, one of the top 25 colleges outside of America, I'm told, in the world. Very renowned one, and from Victoria Island.
Beautiful campus too. UBC is very nice.
So she's just come in from Vancouver this morning, and she's coming to work 3 years on an H-1B visa and support our academic and college placement. We have Shane Reiser, our consultant, and Stephanie Donono as our director, and she's coming in to help and support them because it's so important to stay on top of the academic and then also the college process.
I'm curious if so for maybe those golf parents right now that have younger kids, there's other opportunities to check out IJGA. You guys have summer camps, winter camps. True, like they can come and just like maybe spend a couple weeks there.
65 days a year. So yep, we have 3 weeks of a winter camp. We have 11, 12 weeks of summer camp, and we have short-time programs that run all the time. So if people want to come down in a Thanksgiving break or a spring break, they can come and try it out. So yep, I think we average about 60 to 70 people in the summer each week. And in the winter, we average about 20 or 30 in our winter camp each week. So, so that's an opportunity to try us out. I mentioned before that I've got a German girl who transferred from Germany, sight unseen, to a golf academy in Florida to find out that she's the only student in this golf academy. So mother said, that was probably a mistake to sign her up without doing the proper due diligence. So I'm talking with the girl this afternoon, and mom's flying in the next day or two to probably transfer her over. But the mom's not making the mistake. This time she's going to come and do her due diligence. visit our campus, meet our people before signing the contract.
I love that. Okay, so for those parents that want to find out more information, they want to maybe reach out to you personally, or kind of maybe book a tour or a telephone call or a Zoom call. What's the best way for, people to kind of get in touch with you, get in touch with the academy?
Well, we have our website, IJGA.com, and our contact details, info@IJGA.com are there. And if you send an email saying, I'd like to make contact, could someone get in touch with us? You can go to info@IJGA.com. There's also a phone number there that we don't really have a receptionist, so it'll probably go to voicemail. But again, we pick up the voicemail, and I try to respond within an hour to an info email as the CEO, and I try to make the first introductory chat, and then I've got 3 program advisors, we call them, that will probably take it from there in some of the more detailed discussion about the intricacies of signing up, enrolling, and all the rest of it. So we have one that covers Greater China, one that covers Latin and North America, one that covers Southeast Asia. So we have the program advisors, but that's probably the best way, is through our info@IJGA and the phone number on the website.
Well, honestly, Andrew, I knew very little about boarding schools and about kind of the benefits of it. And the more we've been talking, the more, the picture's been painted of like what life for, 3-4 years would be like for my child if they were there. Like, they're learning independence, they're learning the character building. They've got, these friend groups that are also like-minded, that are also, into kind of pursuing golf and academics. It sounds fantastic.
Well, I interesting kids to write home to their parents. It's sort of paint by numbers writing.
Sure.
Give them 1 page on golf, 1 on tournaments, 1 on student life, 1 on academics, and we give them 3 questions to answer within these 4 pages. And I sit at the front of the room, and I have 90 kids line up with their letters home, and I read every single thing they write. And if I'm not trying to edit, I want it to be, them talking to the parents. But if they haven't shown enough respect, with the handwriting being untidy or not enough content, I do take pleasure in tearing it up and asking them to But the reason I mentioned
The
it,
parents appreciate that.
well, but still some of the stuff that they get isn't to the standard I'd like it to be. But we had one kid who's determined to go to Duke, and I looked at his writing and I thought, that's not going to get you to Duke with that writing and content. But the reason I mention these letter writings is I'm obviously reading every single comment, and the word that pops off the page the most is we have a kind culture. They say the coaches are kind, the house parents are kind, but most importantly, all the other students are kind. So I think that respect culture, that kind culture, is something that we value enormously, a sense of family. And the other thing they talk about is how they enjoy the freedom. They're in their house with a golf cart, and the course and range is open to them whenever they like. We have floodlights. They can keep going till 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. When it gets a bit darker at 5:30 in the winter, they're using the floodlit putting, bunker chipping, and hitting bays. And then the other thing they talk about, I've just alluded to it, is their friends. I don't get a name check very often on the letters, nor do our coaches or house parents get name checks. What matters to them are their friendship groups and the freedom and the access they've got to the facilities, as well as, the basketball, the tennis, the pickleball, all that other stuff, but principally the golf. So that's what I'm proud of, is our peer group. We've got extraordinary students. We, the adults, create the environment. We manage the boundaries, but really the magic happens student to student. Steve Pinker, who's now a professor of psychology at Harvard University, wrote a book called The Blank Slate. And during the years 15, 16, 17, 18, he observed that teenagers no longer look at their parents as the heroes that they once were. No longer look at the parents as being the all-wise ones. Instead, their friendship group, their peer group, are the wise ones. Oh, mom and dad, you know nothing, type of thing. And he said it's been like that for thousands of years and will be like that for thousands of years. Don't fight it. The most important thing you can do as parents is to manage your child's peer group. Find a peer group that you think is positive, goal-oriented, hardworking, disciplined, and hopefully kind and supportive, and place your kid with trust in that peer group. And that's the best you can do. And that's really what we're offering, is the most extraordinary peer group of goal-oriented, disciplined, hardworking, driven people who I think have a very positive culture. And that's where the magic is, within that peer group.
So well said. So beautiful. The International Junior Golf Academy. Andrew, thank you for spending some time with me. Thanks for, because I mean, I was genuinely curious, because what is that next stage? As your kid is getting, more and more into golf, you've got junior golf, which is kind of the early years, and then you're kind of progressing, and you have school. And how do you manage that? How do you manage, and what are the options? And IJGA is not only a good option, but a fantastic option for parents to be looking at. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything, I mean, you got the eyes and the ears of golf parents all over the world. Is there any kind of parting advice or anything that you'd like to say to them, or anything that you think would be important for them to hear?
I think it's just along the lines, yes, I do think we've got a most extraordinary thing going on here, and I couldn't be more proud. I've got hundreds of stories of how students have developed in character as well as in golf through here. But we're not the only solution. There are many alternative solutions. So yes, this isn't the only route. Look at how many Rory McIlroys. They didn't come to a golf academy. Justin Thomas is, his father's a pro. There are other ways of doing it, but we do think we offer a solution for those that are looking for that boarding golf academy solution. And I just would advise, understand the questions you should be asking of the alternative golf academies, and do ask those good questions, because it is important to do your due diligence.
And you can reach out to Andrew, and you can get those 200 questions that he mentioned. I'm sure he would send you exactly, and you can do your homework broken down into the itemized 15 questions per grouping, and you can educate yourself as to what to be looking for. And
Love to do it. Yeah.
Andrew, thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this. I look forward to having you on again.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Hey, golf parents. Before you go, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you found value in this episode, please follow the podcast, leave a short review, or share it with another golf parent who would love it. Every single one helps us grow this movement to raise future champions together. Thank you. See you next week.